Alrighty. Hey everybody, it's getting crazy. Yeah. Good morning, Steve here from The Varied Life. Retired in Korea. Retiring overseas is usually seen as something that is a benefit to people. It allows people to pay less expenses so they can retire earlier, or if they retire and they get a smaller benefits package or salary or pension or whatever it is, then they're able to go to places and have a good retirement. So overseas retirement is really good. And I've been talking about this for quite some time because I'm retired early here in Korea, South Korea, not the North Korea. Those are the bad guys. We're in South Korea where the good guys are. But yeah, there seems to be some problems, and it is recently blown up. And I don't know, I might have to recant on some of the things I said about Korean medical system. Yeah, medical system collapsing, doctors refusing to work because of what? Yeah, this is going to get crazy. And at first, I couldn't believe it. I thought mainly it was a translation error, and there's got to be more to it than this. But yeah, this is really, really confusing. And starting going into the history of doctors and strikes in Korea, and I've noticed a pattern. And thankfully, my wife, who is Korean, speaks, reads, writes, the whole nine yards, was able to school me up as we were watching the local news that was showing the history of doctors and striking in Korea. And yeah, it is something that is out of this world, and in my opinion, doesn't make sense to me, to my wife, doesn't make sense to her. It seems pretty bad. So anyway, we're going to start off. When you hear the reason why, you will be like, what in the world is going on? So the first thing we're going to take a look at is the screen here, and we're going to make this a little bit smaller if I can, so that way we can see everything. This is Reuters, explain why South Korean training doctors are on strike over medical school quotas. This is really interesting because it is the 22nd here in Korea, and this is updated 6 hours ago. So basically, almost 8,000 training doctors have walked off the job in South Korea to protest a government plan to admit more students to medical school, and more are expected to join them. Matter of fact, last night as we were watching the news, it was up to 8,800 and something, which is huge because there's only about 140,000 doctors in Korea altogether for a population of about 51, 52 million people. And the majority of the good hospitals, the big hospitals, are in Seoul. Some are in different places, but Seoul is the big place to go. And one of the hospitals, one of the top 5, is Samsung Medical Center, where I got my eye surgery for cataracts and detached retina and retinal tears and the whole 9 yards. Great service, clean, professional, didn't see one bit of attitude. But when this popped off a little while ago, it just amazed me. So when it says that these trainee doctors, I'm assuming they're talking about residents. So you go through medical school, you go to a hospital, and you go through residency where you work and train to learn how to be the doctor that you want to be, that you're training to be. And after so many years of that residency, then you become a full-fledged doctor. But really, if you get a resident, they're going to have their work reviewed by a senior doctor or senior staff. So it's a thing. It is a practice. But these 8,800 and some odd plus trainees, what they ended up, they gave their resignation letters. Yeah, they gave their resignation letters. And when we talk about some of the reasons why, it says, why are they taking such radical action? They're leaving work. They are, there was a thing that we watched on the Korean news where it had these doctors and they take off their white doctors' coats and hats and they fold them up and they set them on the ground in the rain. Talk about disrespect. I'm all for airing your grievances and so on and so forth, but when you hear the reason why, you'll be scratching your head. Medical interns and resident doctors say they are underpaid and overworked, and that their protest shows the system is broken because their absence results in surgical procedures being canceled and emergency rooms turning back patients. So, to put this in perspective, again, you have about 140,000 doctors in Korea, in all of Korea. And you have a lot of residents, and they do long hours. Typically, what you see, at least in the United States, residents do a lot of hours. That's the way it is. And hospitals don't want to pay to have more medical students because of the profit. The bottom line, it's going to cost more money for the hospital to hire more doctors and get better staff to reduce the incredibly stupid amount of hours that the residents work. So you would think, well, wait a second, if they're so broke, and it ends up that it's like you would want more doctors so that way you could spread out the work amongst more doctors and reduce the amount of time. But they don't see it that way. They're saying that, procedures are being canceled and whatever. And there's a ton of people in Korea. And the problem is they have like the lowest amount of doctors per capita in any developed nation. Industrial action by training doctors have been effective in the past, and we'll talk about that, about what they did, largely because they make up at least 40% of the staff of some major hospitals in Seoul. Trainees work 80 to 100 hours, 5 days a week, up to 20 hours a day. Conditions need to be addressed by hiring more senior staff, not increasing the number of trainee doctors or resident doctors. So let me get this straight. The residents are working 80 to 100 hours, 5 days a week with 1 day off, which is pretty rough, up to 20 hours a day. And there's obviously the workload is too much, but you need to hire more senior staff. You don't need to hire more residents. That doesn't make sense to me. And as a person who has a daughter who is a doctor in the United States, this just doesn't make sense. A medical doctor and policy director of public health advocacy group for the Korean Federation of Medical Activist Group says younger doctors are also worried about increasing number of medical students because it will mean more competition in an already cutthroat sector. In other words, they're worried about the money. They're worried about, greasing the palms and pocketing the cash. And it should be noted that in Korea, doctors are one of the highest paid professions. If you do the won conversion rate, they make about $200,000 a year. Some specialties get more than others. Some specialties also get additional compensation, which is similar to what we see in the United States. What is in the government plan? Well, the government sees that they are lacking in doctors. Again, they have the lowest amount of doctors of any developed nation on the planet, and they want to increase the number of students admitted to medical schools by 2,000 starting next year to bring the total to 5,000 from 3,000 now. The health ministry says the increase is intended to fill the expected shortfall of 15,000 doctors projected by 2035. An estimate based on the fact that South Korea is one of the world's fastest aging society and demand for medical services, especially for seniors, will continue to grow. And that is absolutely true. You can look at this in other countries, that when you have an aging demographic, a large aging demographic, they do require more care. There's more appointments. There's more, prescriptions. There's more procedures. I know this for a fact because my grandmother, who has passed away a while ago, it's been some time, but she was seeing the doctor. I mean, there was like 10 or 15 appointments a month that she was up there. She was in her 90s, but she was seeing the doctor and had appointments, 10 or 15 appointments a month. So yeah, it's a thing, and that was normal for her. That wasn't catastrophic stuff. That was like normal stuff. The medical community is also aging, and more doctors are expected to retire. And that's why they want to add more people. The government had planned to increase investment and lift pay for doctors in regional and rural areas to maintain essential healthcare services there. Now, I've talked about this before in the past here in Korea, that in rural areas and kind of out in the sticks places, the medical care is really lacking. And so not a lot of doctors want to go to the rural areas. In the United States, we have similar things where the doctors, they all want to go to the big cities, to New York and Denver and, San Francisco and Seattle and all that stuff. They want to go to the big places and live the big city doctor life. A lot of doctors don't want to go to the small towns, the small cities and do that. So what the U.S. government did is they actually provide and say, hey, we will pay for your medical school or some other type of idea where the government will pay for your schooling if you agree to go to and be a doctor in these rural areas, which is a great deal. Kind of similar to the military. The military has a thing where we will pay for your medical school, we will pay a living stipend of like $2,200 a month, and after you complete your medical school, so in other words, they pay all the bills. They pay the lab fees, the books, the whole 9 yards. And then when you get done with your medical school and you go into the military as a doctor for whatever specialty it is, and you complete your residency, then you have to give the military 8 years. Okay, not a bad deal, because medical school is around, $250,000, $300,000, $500,000 more. And 8 years is incredible because on the opposite side, civilians that get loans for medical school will end up paying on those student loans for 30 years. There was a doctor that I knew at a church that we went to, and one day, really great guy, he was an older guy, and one day he showed up to church and he was all smiles and happy, and it's like, hey, what's going on with you? And he goes, I'm so happy. He goes, I just paid off my loans. I'm done. I don't have to. And it's like, really? Wow. How long have you been paying on your student loans? 30 years. And now he finally paid off his student loans. And he was aggressive in paying off his student loans. So yeah, 30 years compared to 8, I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me, to not be under the thumb and the oppression of student debt, take advantage of the program. So anyway, aside from that, the government wants to increase and they want to invest to lift the pay of doctors in these outlying areas and also in specialties where they need it. Here in Korea, one of the specialties that is really, really understaffed is pediatricians. It's hard to find a pediatrician, and there's people that will get on trains with their sick kids, travel 2, 3, 4 hours to get to a pediatrician. So that tells me you need some doctors, you need some pediatricians, and they get lower pay, so that should be addressed. With that being said, the doctors and the residents are all saying, "Oh no, we don't want more people." That doesn't make sense because you're putting lives at risk by not filling those positions and giving more doctors. The government has already raised fees for doctors in essential services like pediatrics, obstetrics. It's morning. Emergency services medicine since last year, and will inject more than 10 trillion won or 7.48 billion to boost these fees further. So here is the rub where the money comes in. The current doctors and residents, and it's almost like the unions back in the day with Jimmy Hoffa and so on and so forth. It kind of gets that weird vibe. Let's keep all the money in house. We don't want to share the pie, as my wife put it. They don't want to share the pie, and they want a big slice of that pie. So they don't want to increase the number of doctors because that means their slice of the pie would be smaller. Yeah, so they want the pie that they have now, and they want that 7.48 billion. They want to keep that all to themselves, and there's a history of this. which is very problematic. The government says doctors in essential disciplines are more often subject to malpractice suits and prosecution, so it plans to introduce new legislation to expand legal protection for doctors. Now, this is one of the things that the residents and the doctors union, or I guess I should say, that is something that they had mentioned. And according to this Reuters article, the government's going to be addressing that as well. So it's kind of similar to where if you are a doctor in the United States, usually you're covered with some sort of immunity that if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and within certain boundaries, and people make mistakes, that the hospital will cover the legal aspects and cover the doctor and so on and so forth, depending on the severity of what went wrong. Some things happen regardless. What is the doctor to patient ratio? So again, it says that it's 2.6 per thousand, and it's ranked one of the lowest among the developing nations. Top ranked is Austria, which has 5.5 doctors for every 1,000. So again, they get paid about $200,000 a year. That was back in 2020. Pediatricians are the lowest paid, making 57% less than the overall average. And of course, Korea, being the K-pop nation that it is, and focus on beauty and this and that, no wonder plastic surgeons and dermatologists in private practice are usually better paid. So, they do have doctors that do plastic surgery and they get better pay. I don't think that they're the ones that are involved in this. This is more like regular hospital doctors. So why do the doctors oppose the plan? This amazes me, because as we are here in Korea watching this and watching Korean news sources in English and then Korean news sources in Korean, the medical community says there are already sufficient doctors and cites the availability of healthcare to most people as an example of why the number of doctors is not an issue. I would have to disagree with this, because when you have people getting on a train or a bus and traveling hours to get to a doctor, that means you don't have enough doctors. When you are being turned away from appointments because there's too many appointments that need to be made and they can only do so many appointments, and so people are left hanging, that means there's not enough doctors. It seems like it's simple math. So that's when as I'm watching and reading, and me and the wife are looking at each other, and it's like, what? No, that totally doesn't make sense. It's about the money. They also say that the number the government wants to boost medical admissions by is arbitrary, and the authorities have not made public the basis for that figure. If you're working 80 to 100 hours a week and you're working 6 days a week with 1 day off, I would say you need more doctors. What are the odds? If you have more doctors, then you can spread out that 80 to 100 hours a week amongst more doctors. You will work less and, maybe get an entire weekend off. So I think, in my personal opinion, I think that's BS. Without addressing the underlying problem of pay and overwork, there's no incentive for increased number of doctors to practice in essential disciplines, they say. That problem of pay, which you're one of the highest paid professions in the country, you're overworked because there's too many people that need medical care, and we'll get to how overworked they are and the amount of medical care that people get. You will be amazed by this. There is no incentive for increased number of doctors. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So again, this goes back to where the hair's on the back of my neck and my gut is saying, yeah, this is about money. Somebody's follow the money and you will see the answer. Some analysts say the number of doctors per capita does not reflect the quality of healthcare. Access to medical care in Korea is some of the best in the world, they say. Yes, it is, but with that being said, if you have to travel hours at a time on a bus, a train, or whatever, or you have to bring your loved one to get cancer treatments or surgery, and you have to pay for hotels and travel and so on and so forth, that's telling me you don't have enough doctors. Yes, you have good health care, but you don't have enough good health care. In other words, you don't have enough doctors to give good health care because people are traveling hours upon, for me to go to Samsung Medical Hospital or Medical Center for my eye surgery and so on and so forth, I had to, and I'm in Painsongup, which is about 30, 40 minutes from Pyeongtaek, which is a couple hours from Seoul. So for me to get to my appointments at Samsung Medical Center, I would have to take a taxi to the train station, then take a 30-minute, about a 15-minute taxi ride, then get to the train station, then about a 30-minute train station ride, and then I have to get off of there and then get on another bus to get to Samsung Medical Center, which took maybe 10 minutes or whatever, sometimes more, depending on traffic, and get to my appointment. And it's like a crowded bus station. It is incredibly crowded. It's like rush hour in a train station or a bus station in large cities. It's just like people are everywhere, shoulder to shoulder. People being pushed in gurneys and in wheelchairs, and it just gives you that busy train station vibe. It is totally different than what we see in the United States. So the hospitals are great. And they do some good work, but there's so many people that come through and get appointments that Korea has made, and I've talked about this in the past, Korea has made it as efficient as they can. Boom, you need a test, get the test. And we'll have 10 people giving the same test, 10 residents giving the same test for, eye tests and this and that. So you'll have 10 different booths and 10 different areas where you can go get the same test because they have such a huge amount of people that need to be seen and have appointments. In the United States, we don't have that. We usually have more doctors. And so Korea has really done really well with handling volume, but I still think they're kind of missing the mark here. So having access to medical care is different than being able to provide proper medical care and allowing your doctors and resident doctors to have at least 2 days off a week and not burn and grind for 100 hours a week. What actions have both sides taken? Well, the government has issued a back-to-work order who have walked off the job and vowed to prosecute those who don't comply. Yeah, because there's this law in Korea that if you put people's lives at risk, and we're going to get into that, that as a doctor, you're going against the Hippocratic Oath, and that's what's going on. It is insane. The government says it will open a dialogue, and they've been talking with the doctors' union or whatever it is. It reminds me of Jimmy Hoffa and all of that, while instructing hospitals and police hospitals around the country to accept civilian patients. It has gotten so bad now in such a short amount of time that now the military hospitals are going to take civilians in and police hospitals. I didn't know there was police hospitals. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently they have their own little hospitals that they go to, which kind of makes sense, because of the vast amount of people that they have, and it makes sense to have their own doctors. But again, you still have a ton of people that are working massive amount of hours, working 6 days a week and 1 day off, grind after grind after grind, and yet the doctors' coalition or whatever it is, they don't want more doctors. So the question is, what is this treatment? This is an interesting. Doctors at top hospitals spend only 4 minutes per patient. 4 minutes. How long does it take to get, say, the medical background of a new patient? Well, according to this, you only got 4 minutes to air your grievance and talk about what has ailed you over the years. And if you're a senior, there can be a lot going on, and that would take way more than 4 minutes. So patients who go to hospitals wait for about an hour. They usually see their doctor for only about 4 minutes, and the situation is getting worse. So for the Doctors Coalition to say, we've got enough doctors and we're doing really good and we don't have a problem, but the problem is our resident doctors and doctors are working 80 to 100 hours and they're working 6 days a week, and that's a problem. but we don't want more doctors, which is the answer to the problem. So again, it's not about getting what they need, it's getting what they want. According to Seoul National University Hospital, who is given to a representative of the Democratic Party of Korea, which is one of the capital's most three popular hospitals, along with Samsung Medical Center and Asan Medical Center, which is close by, spent an average of 4 minutes and 26 seconds seeing each patient between January and August of the year. It is even shorter than last year, where they spent 4 minutes and 37 seconds per patient. By department, cardiology, endocrinology, metabolism outpatient saw their doctor for 3 minutes and 28 seconds. That's not even enough time for a doctor to pull up your file, go over it, become familiar with who and what he's dealing with, and then you're only going to spend 3 hours and 28 seconds. Hi, my name is Dr. This. Yes. So what is your problem? I mean, just think about when you go to the doctor. Well, how long has this been going on? Well, it's been going on like this, this, and this. I mean, you and it's cardiology, big, huge problems. You need more time. Urologist, nephrologist, gastroenterologist, rehabilitation, oncologist, neurologist, all had less than 4 minutes to spend on each of their patients. Wow. In the United States, my daughter's a doctor, and in the United States, the doctors all bemoan the fact that they only have like 10 minutes per patient, maybe 15. It depends, but they really try to get it down to 10 minutes per patient. And here, Korea is down to 3 minutes, 3 and 4 minutes per patient. Boom, cut you off, and cut, paste, get you out. Which in some things that can be that can be a benefit. Like if I need to get refills for medication for PTSD, mental health, and this and pain and whatever, I go see the doctor. Hey, what's going on? I'm in pain, chronic pain. Here's my thing, blah, blah, blah. Or I need a refill. Everything's doing great. Dose is set right. Okay, looks good. Well, we're going to, how often are you taking this? Are you having any side effects? No, I'm not. Okay, boom. There's your thing. And your 3-minute conversation is done. So I don't bemoan that at all. That is great. I don't like being in the hospital and having to deal with a long, drawn-out thing just to get a refill on medication. But if you have more serious problems, you should be able to have more time. And with the minimal amount of time that you have with your doctor, do you think there might be some dropped balls every once in a while? Do you think the doctor might miss something because they're working 6 days a week, 100 hours, 20 hours a day? You've got so many patients. And here in this article, it goes on. It says doctors at large hospitals say it is structurally impossible for them to spend more time on each patient. Now, this is the Doctors Coalition, the one that says that they don't want more doctors. And they're saying as soon as they have to see at least 100 patients a day. A doctor who trained at SNUH said some of her professors didn't have time for lunch, and that's kind of a normal thing. They just kind of snack and through the day, and you don't get to sit down. You don't get to do any of the things that American doctors get to do. Even though American doctors work some cruddy and crappy hours, it is exponentially worse than what we hear in Korea. They may do with a piece of rice cake or skip lunch. Patients must be angry after waiting so long, but doctors were there working all the while. And remember, this is, the Doctors Coalition is basically saying we're overworked, we're obviously understaffed, we're seeing, at least 100, they have to see at least 100 patients a day in these big hospitals. And then when the government says, okay, well, we're going to open up the medical schools to have more doctors, the Doctors Coalition says, nope, don't need more doctors. No. I know we're working 6 days a week, 100 hours, 20-hour days, no time for meals, working late into the hours, staying over, double shifts, the whole 9 yards. I mean, there's double shifts being involved as well. We don't want to even get into that. But we don't want more doctors. That makes absolutely no sense. But the Doctors Coalition wants more senior staff. Senior staff get paid more money. It's almost like a union organizers and the top dogs in the union are saying, no, don't do that because that's going to cut into our funds. But we want to rub the backs and we want to bring up some of our homies and so on and so forth. This is just my opinion. Excuse me. I hope I don't have to see a doctor. It is so weird. It is so weird. So yeah, there's this going on with, and here's more. Wait, there's more. It gets better. So anyway, I was taking notes from the news that we watched last night, and it is insane. So the government wants, because people are, 100 at least 100 patients per day. Doctors only spending 3 to 4 minutes on each patient in major specialties. Overworked, 80 to 100 hours. And so they want to increase the number of doctors. Excuse me. Man. So here's some background on the information of doctors, and has this happened before in the past? I didn't know this. My wife didn't know this. We didn't know this until last night. So this exact same thing happened back in 2000. And according to the news that we watched, 70% of doctors went on strike for the same reason, and the government caved in. So the exact same reason. We don't have enough doctors. There's not enough service for the population, so on and so forth. Almost cut and paste of what we're seeing today. And the doctors went on strike. 70% of the doctors, which goes against the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm. I don't know. And they reduced the number of doctors. So they had something like 3,500 or something as, the number of new doctors that they would have. And then they dropped it down to about 3,000 or whatever. So they cut the number of slots for doctors, which is insanely stupid because at that time, the population was increasing. Then in 2014, the government wanted to do telemedicine, so doctors went on strike again. So instead, you have a lot of people that need doctor's appointments, and you could do telemedicine where you could do kind of like what we're doing here. Oh, why, hello, Mr. John and Jane Q. Public. I am Dr. Wilson, and we're going to go over and do this telemedicine thing. And let's see here. It says that you need a refill on your medicine. Okay, clickety-clack. You get your refill at the local pharmacy. No problem. Whatever. We could do the things that don't require travel can be done over telemedicine. And that was a while back. That was in 2014. And the government wanted to institute this because they saw all of the problems that was going on with people not being able to get to doctors, to not have access to care because there's such a demand and there's not enough doctors. But the doctors don't want more doctors. So anyway, the doctors went on strike again and the government caved to their demands. So telemedicine went away. Probably one of the greater tools that we have in the 20th century, 21st century, 22nd century, whatever it is, that could be an awesome tool to the medical facility and system, but they don't want that. Because it seems like, I don't know, it's just going to go out on a limb here and say the more physical patients that they see, the more money that they make than telemedicine. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, it goes on and says, during COVID, some doctors were on strike again, and they didn't want more doctors. At a time in history where you probably wanted more doctors, regardless of how you feel about COVID and all of that, they needed more doctors. It was absolute truth. We have White's family here and so on and so forth. We'd hear stories, and it was just like painfully obvious that they were understaffed. So anyway, the government comes up and says that we need 2,000 more doctors slated for medical or people to be doctors to attend medical school and so on and so forth. Current doctors don't want this, that they're like I said, they're acting like the the unions and Jimmy Hoffa and kind of the Goodfellas type of thing. There's money involved and pays and fees and whatever. You follow the money, I'm sure you would come to the same conclusion. And so they're walking off. They are striking. They signed in their resignations. And like I said, there's over 8,800 that have walked off the job, which you're going against the Hippocratic Oath. It doesn't make sense. You're putting people's lives in risk. The news had already put out and showed that people are getting refused for cancer treatments. There's people that are getting refused for surgeries. And as of last night, there's already been 58 lawsuits filed against these big hospitals because they're saying, hey, my loved one or myself or whatever was supposed to get this surgery, and it was scheduled, and now we can't, and it's cancer, and it's emergency surgery, it's life-saving surgery, it's chemotherapy treatments that have now been canceled, and they did interviews with people. Of course, they blurred out their faces, but yeah, there's people that are going to miss 3 and 4 rounds of chemo because of the doctor strike. And it's like, how can a doctor who swore to do no harm take that oath and then just walk off the job and, screw 'em, while still complaining of, we're being worked too hard. And then the government says, well, fine, we'll have more doctors. And you say, no, I don't want more doctors. How are you going to, I don't think technology can only go so far in regards to streamlining the process. Korea's got it going on as far as dealing with high volume. I don't think, in my opinion, from what I've seen in my experience in the United States, in the military, in Korean hospitals and healthcare and so on and so forth, and they rejected telemedicine. Seriously, what other advancements in technology they want? Oh, we want more technology. And it's like, you rejected telemedicine, which is an awesome tool. We saw that during COVID, and that's a great thing. And of course, unfortunately, there's a lot of, the U.S. kind of reneged on that as well. So, doctors advocate are saying there's no need for more doctors, even though we're working our resident doctors at 100 hours per week plus, working 6 days a week, 20 hours a day, missing meals, and let's forget about their, when you overwork somebody and they're overly tired and they make wrong decisions, that's going to cost the hospital, it's going to cost the patient. People could die and get injured because of this. But no, we don't want more doctors. That is asinine, in my opinion. That is just, here's another thing I got that was talking about this, that, here's some other observations. Hospitals are canceling appointments and surgeries, and they're kicking people out of hospitals. They're saying, nope, you got to go home. Your surgery's been canceled. There's no attempt to reschedule surgeries or treatments or things, and they're telling people, I know you're in bad shape, but you got to go. And people are complaining, and the majority of the population is like, what the hell are the doctors doing? Doctors with shortage hospitals are having PAs and nurses work more to take up the slack. But now the PAs and the nurses are saying, hey, we're not a doctor. We're nurses. We're this. We're not supposed to be doing the jobs of doctors. And so now there's liability concerns. And now those people are talking about, whoa, wait a second now, right? And they're talking about possible strikes as fallout from the doctors who are getting probably the highest pay in Korea for occupations, walking off and striking because they're overworked, underpaid, and they don't want more doctors. Here's another rub. How far and how deep is the Korean doctor coalition or union or mafia or whatever you want to say? How much reach does it have? Well, apparently it's pretty big because it's reaching all the major hospitals. And so far, over almost 9,000 doctors have signed resignation letters and not shown up to work. The government has said, hey, you need to come to work because it's for the people. You're putting lives at risk and so on and so forth. And these doctors are saying no. The government is saying, well, if you don't, you're you're going to be arrested. So yeah, this is weird. But how far-reaching is this coalition? It goes to the medical schools themselves. So much so that 46% of medical school students stopped going to school. Almost half of the medical students that are going through medical school, training to be doctors because, it's what they want to do. It's their desire. They're going to make a lot of money, which is true. They'll make a lot of money. They walked off. They're basically what the news said is that, yeah, you go for a semester. Well, they're not going to come. They're taking time off for a semester. What is that? Why would a medical school allow that to happen? Now, think of the fallout from that. What about the student loans? Because people just don't show up to medical school and say, oh, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 here. I'll pay that right now and I'll go to medical school for the tuition, labs, the fees, and so on and so forth, the time and energy. No, there's student loans involved. So the fallout from this is going to be massive because now medical students are saying, oh, well, I'm not going because I'm following this coalition of doctors that says we don't need more doctors, but we're severely overworked, and I don't want to be part of this. It makes absolutely no sense to me. It makes no sense to my wife as well. So, yeah, there's that. 46% of medical school students walked off. They quit for the semester. So however long that's going to be. There are reports of cancer patients who've had their appointments canceled. Numerous spinal surgeries have been canceled and other surgeries. Government is ordering doctors back to work. The government is talking about authorizing military hospitals and doctors to treat civilians, is what we ended up seeing. Then it says that, I'll save that for last because that's going to hit home for some people. Most doctors that were resigning were in Seoul, but other doctors in other large cities are doing this as well. So it's now become, it's crazy. I just don't get it. The next thing it says, the fact is Korea has a shortage of doctors in smaller cities and towns, and even in the big cities. When you have doctors that are seeing at least 100 patients a day, and you're working 100 hours, maybe working 20 hours a day, 6 days a week, but you don't want more doctors. You complain, but the Doctors Coalition wants more senior staff, which, do senior staff get paid more? Yes, they do. So in other words, they oversee these residents. So in other words, they're pulling the strings of all these residents and all these medical school students because they want more money. There's money involved. Follow the money and you will see what is actually going on. I mean, you don't even need to see that. You could just see that, hey, you took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm and to be a doctor and serve the populace and so on in one of the highest paid professions, but we don't want more doctors. So that just tells me, in my opinion, that the senior staff that is running this coalition, which is interesting because they seem to have a lot of liberal tendencies with this, and they're highly organized. The fact that they brought the government to their knees a series of times throughout in a short span of time in history here in Korea, of not wanting more doctors, but they want more senior staff. Senior staff get paid more money. They don't care about the residents. They say they care about the residents, but when you look at the pocketbooks and the money and where that flows, that shows that they don't care about the residents. If you say, this is just me thinking out loud, if you have overworked doctors, resident doctors, and they're seeing over 100 patients a day, working 6 days a week, 20 hours a day, whatever it is. And you're saying, nope, we don't want more doctors. No, we need more pay. Let's say the government caves in. But notice it doesn't say that they want the senior doctors to get more pay. They want more senior doctors, so they want more of that pie. They want a big slice of that pie. But for the crumbs to come down to the residents, maybe a little bit, you'll get a couple of crumbs here and there, but you're still, if you keep the same number of doctors and you have a demographic that is requiring more and more medical appointments as they get older, you're going to be working even more hours than 80 or 100 hours a week. You're going to work more than 20 hours a day. You're going to work and see more than 100 patients. It's probably going to get into 150, 200 patients a day, where it ends up that you're only going to be able to spend 2 minutes with your doctor. What good quality medical care can you get on 2 or 3 minutes? Interesting. I read that the average number of patients, we talked about that, Hippocratic Oath, when the doctors resign and leave, leaving patients without life-saving surgeries or care, who's to blame? Well, the Doctors Coalition is blaming the government. The government is blaming the doctors who are walking off, that are saying, oh, we're overworked and underpaid, but we don't want more doctors. So really it's not, you see what I'm saying? It is so weird. The Korean government has a law, now this is interesting, I didn't know this, has a law stating that they can take away doctors' licenses from practicing medicine away if they put patients at risk or in harm's way because of strikes and so on and so forth. So the Korean government has been fighting with this Doctors Coalition here in Korea for some time, and I didn't know this, neither my wife or, a lot of people don't know this. They've been fighting this for some time, so the Korean government made this law and said, hey, well, if you abandon your patient and it results in harm to patients or the populace, guess what? We're going to hold you liable for that. So now this Doctors Coalition is saying, no, it's your fault. The government's saying, no, it's your fault. So it's kind of like that Spider-Man meme where everybody's pointing, and whose fault is it? And who is taking the brunt of this? It's the people. It's the people that need life-saving care. It's people that need surgeries. It's people that need cancer treatments. It's people that are trying to bring their kids to find a pediatrician, and they get there and they find out there's people who were interviewed who showed up to appointments for that day that were told, yeah, you're not getting an appointment and we don't know when we can get you an appointment, so you just need to leave. People who spent many hours traveling to get to their appointments at these big medical centers because that's where all the good care is and where all the doctors are. Yeah. Insane. Absolutely insane. So I said towards a little earlier, talking about how is this going to affect people like retirees, people who are retired overseas, like myself and my wife. And there's a lot of other people. It can mean that you don't get the care that you need and require because of this doctor strike. It means that you won't be able to get medications because you can't get refills unless some drastic measures are taken. And Lord forbid that you have a serious injury or complication or stroke or heart attack, or you need some life-saving surgery or dealing with cancer or whatever it is. Even regular services like the eye surgery that I got. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that have detached retinas that need that surgery to give them their sight back. And if they don't get it, they're going to lose their vision. There's people that are going to have cataracts and that are not going to be able to get their vision. Talk about one of the things that you take for granted the most is your vision. And that's just talking the small stuff. We're not even talking the big stuff. So, yeah, with the history of the doctors and the Doctors Coalition, I'm just calling them a coalition. The doctors is more like, Jimmy Hoffa and his crew. There seems to be a money problem. And the coalition of these doctors that is running all this and pulling the strings of all the residents and medical school students, there must be an obscene amount of money that is to be made. And of course, they talked about that $7.4 billion, and they don't want more doctors. They want more senior staff, which kind of reminds me of the United States, where there's always these pleas for, we want money for education. It's for the children. And then really the majority of the money goes to administration and never a dime is seen in the classroom. It's not paid to teachers. It's not paid for, more books and supplies for students and schools and computers, or even the infrastructure thereof. But all that money stays with the administration.
Administration gets tons of pay raises, but regular teachers don't. I see that as the exact similar to what is going on here. And just to what type of person who took that oath to do no harm, how can you walk off the job, resign, because somebody who's pulling your strings saying, "Hey, no, we don't need more doctors, even though you're working over 100 hours a week." No, we don't need that. We don't need the aging population. Oh no, the government doesn't know what they're talking about. I mean, as a foreigner that's here and has experienced medical systems in the military and in the United States and other countries, yeah, this, and according to the news, now every news is a little biased in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure, but the multiple news sources that we watched last night and then got online and checked out is that, yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. It does not make sense. So the demands of the doctors say, no, we don't want more doctors, even though we're being overworked. Yeah. It's a black hole. It says big hospitals in Seoul are absorbing outpatients from around the country like a black hole. And there was actually a documentary I saw about this, about how Seoul has become the black hole, where the epitome of success is being in Seoul. So whatever your occupation is, you want to do it, and you want to do it in Seoul because the best of everything is in Seoul, and including doctors and medical care and so on and so forth. Patients' distrust in local clinics and high-speed railways across the country, which make the hospitals more accessible, have accelerated this concentration. Despite having to be on a waiting list for months before seeing doctors they want, the number of outpatients at that Seoul National University Hospital increased 9.2% during the January and August timeframe. So again, the hospitals themselves are reporting and showing that they are getting more and more people. That they're getting more and more appointments, more and more problems of people who need medical attention, but the Doctors Coalition is saying, no, government doesn't know what it's talking about. We don't need more doctors, but we need more senior staff. We need more administration, and those people get paid a lot more money. I don't know. The Korean news source also says that there hasn't been anything like this in any other country around the world, where doctors have done such strikes to put the population at risk. And I can tell from my time in the United States, I don't know about the entire world, but the United States, I haven't seen anything like this. I mean, this makes you wonder, and it's like, well, I wonder if the doctors had a family member that needed cancer treatment or life-saving surgery or chemotherapy or whatever therapies, to survive, live, and have a better quality of life. What happens with those people? Put the shoe on the other foot, and how does it feel? I bet those doctors would treat their family members, but you're not willing to treat the populace. That tells me you're a dick. Straight up. And it's funny because in the past I have seen shows, I have seen little documentary things of where Korea sends doctors to third world countries to provide medical care, to provide sight to the blind and emergency surgeries and so on and so forth. And they make a big to-do about this, and it's on the news and this and that. But yet when it comes to your own people, you're just giving them the bird and saying, yep, screw it, no. Even though we're being overworked, even though patients are only being seen for 3, maybe 4 minutes, we're working. No, we don't need more doctors. How can anybody in their right mind come to that conclusion? To me, that they're deluded. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. This could get really, really ugly. So the last little bit, is this going to affect retirees? Possibly, probably, yes. The other aspect of people that are going to be affected are U.S. military personnel. And you might be saying, well, what? What do you mean? Doesn't the military have their own hospitals? Yes, but military hospitals are also severely understaffed. So often what they do is they will make referrals to local Korean hospitals. MRIs, CT scans, surgeries, all kinds of different things. I've seen and talked with American service members on how their family members need to get referrals. I've seen family members on the Facebook groups for military bases in Korea, and they're talking about, hey, does anybody know about this and which doctor is good to get? I got a referral for Korean medical, up in Seoul in one of the big 3 hospitals or whatever. And so there's a lot of referrals going on. Now there's not going to be those referrals. So the people that can't get appointments on the military base as it is because they are understaffed, and to deal with those lack of staff issues, they give referrals out to the local Korean hospitals. Now the Korean hospitals are rejecting those appointments. What are service members and family members of those service members and the contractors? I mean, there's something like 35,000 people at Camp Humphreys alone, just at Camp Humphreys. And there's a lot of people that get referrals to go to Korean hospitals because the hospital on the military base cannot give them the care that they need. Where does that leave them? This could have some huge complications. And, for somebody that's retired like me, if there's some bad medical complications and this thing snowballs even worse, I haven't even checked the news to see what the latest number of people, doctors who resigned today is this morning. It's 9:00 in the morning here in Korea on the 22nd. It's obviously more, and there's probably more lawsuits being filed and more reports. There was reports of people that were supposed to get life-saving surgeries or surgeries in general that had been scheduled for months in advance that now weren't going to be given, and people are kicked out, and people are calling the local police station to report and say, hey, they're refusing to give medical care. They're kicking us out of the hospital. It's strange but true. And it's like, so yeah, this is huge. It might have to be medical tourism. And usually people come to Korea for medical tourism because of the great medical care and so on and so forth. But the problem is now that's going to be affected as well. So one of the great big draws for people to come to Korea is medical tourism, along with K-pop and all that other stuff. That's going to be affected as well. So that's going to cut tourism funds. And it's just like, just hire more doctors. Good Lord, let them have some more doctors. If you can't see the puppet masters that are telling you, no, we don't want more doctors, but we want more senior staff. In other words, we want more money for our cohorts and our buddies and scratch their back, and we're going to be the good old boy system here. But the residents, we don't want to alleviate the 100-hour or 20-hour working days that they have. No, we don't want to do anything to help them, but we just don't want more doctors. That is insane. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. So is the medical system in Korea collapsing? And is it really true that doctors who are being overworked are refusing to work and resigning because the government wants to have more doctors? If you told me that, I never would have imagined that in 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years. It's, of course, then again, we've seen a lot of things that were absolutely crazy, like shutting down economies because of COVID, people pretending to be cats and dogs and animals and, I identify as this, or, pronouns and things like this. And there's so many things that are going on that are just absolutely insanely stupid that this makes those things seem tame. Could you imagine what would happen if this happened in the United States? Of course, it wouldn't happen in the United States. And it makes absolutely no sense. I just don't get this. Doctors are, they're refusing to work. They go on strike. They handed in their resignations because they're being overworked. And so the government says, well, fine. Well, we're going to authorize medical schools to hire more and allow more medical students to go, or students to go into medical school to become more doctors to help with aging and ever increasing, appointments here in Korea. And the Doctors Coalition, the puppet masters, are saying, no, we don't want that. We want the money for the senior staff, but we don't actually want to have more doctors. And there's a history and a behavior showing that the Doctors Coalition is what I call it. It's not what they really are. But they, just like in this article in Reuters, trainees work 80 to 100 hours, 5 days a week, up to 20 hours a day. There was, in the news, there were some saying that they're working 6 days a week. Some are saying they're doing lots of doubles and so on and so forth. But the Doctors Coalition is saying, no, we don't want more doctors. The plan and the government said, again, just a little rehash, that they wanted 2,000 more medical school students starting in 2025 and to bring the total to 5,000 from 3,000 where it is now. And the thing is there's a lifespan of doctors, and eventually doctors are going to retire. Eventually doctors are going to see less patients. You're going to have doctors who are going to go into private practice. So, now there's that. But still, the fact that there are too many patients and too many appointments, people are being overworked, but the coalition doesn't want more doctors. But the government has raised fees for doctors in essential services like pediatrics and all that, and they will inject more than $7.48 billion to boost these fees further, which is the Prime Minister Han Duck-seo said. But yeah, these people are like, no, we don't want that. We don't want more doctors. And yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It is absolutely insane. When you see a patient on average 4 minutes per patient, what type of comprehensive care can you get when you see a doctor for only 4 minutes and then you have to kick him out the door and see the next patient, and you do that 100 or more times a day? I don't know. It just does not make sense. So, with that being said, being retired in Korea, yeah, great overall. Apparently, now's not a time to have a stroke or problems or get sick or any of that. So what is the backup plan? I always talk about having a backup plan. I guess some of the backup plans is maybe have to travel to another country to get medical care. That is entirely a possibility. So I think what we're going to end up seeing as a result of this stupidity, in my opinion, is that you will have a lot of Koreans that are going to go to neighboring countries to get medical care because they can't get it in their own country, because the Doctors Coalition doesn't want more doctors for their overworked residents. And they're refusing to work. They're putting people's lives at risk by saying, no, we're not going to give you your cancer treatment. No, we're not going to give you your surgeries. No, we're not going to do this or that. No, who cares about your eyesight? I'm resigning as a doctor. And you put your doctor's coat and stethoscope on the ground in the rain and say, oh, I'm standing up for doctors. Bullshit. Doctors aren't supposed to stand up for doctors. They're supposed to stand up for people for whom they serve. And then you get compensated for doing that. That Hippocratic oath of do no harm is huge. And apparently, I don't know who hoodwinked all these doctors into thinking that that doesn't mean anything anymore. Just amazes me. I just don't get it. So the fallout of this, you're going to have people that are going to be traveling to other countries. So what are some local countries? Let's take a look at some. Let's pull up a map. And let's see what some other countries are around the world. Okay. Yeah. So let's take a look at this. So here we have, there's Korea. Obviously, you're not going to go to North Korea. But you have Japan. You have China that you could go to get service there. Go to Taiwan. You could probably go to China. You have the Philippines. You have Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. Those are places that offer medical care, which is, just kind of a hop, skip, and a jump away. Malaysia, I think you're going to see more and more of these people. Indonesia, probably not Papua New Guinea or Guam, but, these countries that are close and around Korea, Japan, China, Taiwan, Manila, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, those places are all going to see more medical tourism for people that cannot get medical care in the United States. You got to have a plan B. But the sad part is normal, everyday working people, Koreans and foreigners living in Korea that are not going to be able to afford flying to another country to get medical care. Who's being put at risk at here? The people. So on one side, I think the government is had a good response of saying, hey, we need more doctors, clearly. And the medical coalition, the puppet masters, are pulling the strings of the doctors and the medical schools and saying, no, we don't need more doctors. They want to keep it low at the same level. They kept the doctors at the same level for 19 years. And as the population continues to get bigger, and of course now the overwork problem comes into light, they still don't want more doctors. But the people that are going to suffer from this are the people that can't go from Korea to Japan or all of these other countries to get medical care, and these doctors are putting these people at risk. They're putting their own countrymen, their own citizens, their neighbors at risk, which does not make sense to me at all. I just don't get it. And then what is some other fallout that can happen from this? Well, obviously, like I said, you have student loans, and if people refuse to work and pay on their student loans, now you have investors that were investing on people that were going to be one of the highest paid professions in the country, and now they're just saying, I resign, I'm not going to pay. Wow. And since we're in a recession, do you think that's really a good thing to do? Probably not, because the fallout is going to be huge. Because now investors are going to pucker up like like you're trying to kiss your sister or something, and it's just going to be like, oh no, don't. And it's going to it's going to get even worse. Wow, like I said, the number of lawsuits that are going to be filed and all of this is unheard of. The news says that this isn't unheard of in any other country. People say, oh, well, we need to have free medical care or socialized medicine and so on and so forth. The lack in quality of care in socialized medicine is pretty well established compared to the capitalistic free market model that we have. But whoever is pulling the strings on these things that are brainwashing these doctors and medical students and residents saying, no, we don't need more doctors. No, we don't need to lighten the workload for you all, but we need more senior staff. That makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, so let's say they do that. You have more senior staff, but more senior staff aren't going to be working those 100 hours a week or 20 hours a day for 6 days a week. No, their senior staff aren't going to do that. They're going to rotate. Whenever was the last time you saw senior staff pull the, take up the slack for residents? It doesn't happen. And it's not going to fix anything. So, the fact that this doctors coalition, that they rejected telemedicine back in, 2016 or 2014, whatever it was. And because for some reason, there's some type of money and they're not getting that money, so they rejected it. That's the conclusion that I can come to. But yeah, this is going to be huge. This is going to be different. This might get to a point of where, and why, I think it's so important to exercise and eat right and to keep yourself in good working condition as best as you can. But even then, there's no guarantee. It can end up, I had my detached retinas and cataracts and the whole 9 yards and had to get surgery. no amount of exercise or good food, whole foods, organic food, or taking supplements and vitamins and, singing Kumbaya and shining sun on my butthole is going to fix those things. Life happens, bad stuff happens, the body breaks down. There's accidents. So what about people that get in car accidents and now need life-saving surgeries? Just guess you're just out of luck. And it's projected that more and more doctors are going to be turning in their resignations. Yeah, it boggles the mind. I just don't get it. So I know I've been talking for quite some time on this, but yeah, this is just really, I just don't get this. And the Korean news, they interviewed a bunch of people, patients at hospitals that were getting kicked out and so on and so forth, and other people that came up for appointments. And it's just like, yeah, it took months to get the appointments. They had people coming from Busan at the southern tip of Korea, taking trains up to Seoul to get appointments for some pretty serious stuff, and the hospitals are turning away and saying, "Oh, sorry, your appointment's been canceled." And the people are like, "I can't go anywhere else." It's not like there's doctors. If there's doctors closer, I would go to those doctors. But the medical system here in Korea has gotten to a point of where to get the best medical care, you need to go to these huge hospitals. So it reminds me of, dare I say this, an organized thing where we're controlling Jimmy Hoffa. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. There was a time when unions were good back in the day in the United States because workers were being overworked and they were being taken advantage of, and the unions came up. There was a long time I wasn't in a union. Then I had some union experience because of things like this and being overworked and not being compensated and getting low pay. So in that aspect, unions are good. But then there seems to be this line where the unions crossed over from taking care of the workers and the people, and then it got corrupt. I think that's what we're seeing here in Korea. And to be honest, I was watching, searching, reading, the Korean Herald, the Korean News, the Yonhap and Sky News and whatever and all those stuff, and, translating the pages from Korean to English, using a Chrome plugin to try to find out the reason of why these doctors were wanting to go on strike. They warned about it, and it's like, I saw no reason. It was like, I don't get it. Doctors are being overworked, and they're saying that they need more senior staff. That's not going to alleviate the number of hours that these residents work. It just doesn't, and none of it made sense. And then as we got into this and to where the strike is actually happening now, like I said, there's only 140,000 doctors in Korea altogether. And now, if you take out the cosmetic surgeons and the people who do the beauty stuff, it's even less. And now, almost 9,000 doctors have walked off and resigned. What is that going to do to the populace? It makes no sense. And even now that this is going on, they're saying the Doctors Coalition, the puppet masters, we need better pay and we need something to alleviate the long hours that our doctors are working. But you don't want more doctors. How is that? Tell me, how is that going to work? The coalition on the news, they had a representative of those doctors, long-haired hippie guy with his hair in a ponytail, which he just gave off that liberal, liberal, I'm better than you vibe, and sitting in a manner. It was just like, he just oozed just ickiness. And through the translation, it ends up, we don't need no more doctors. There's no proof whatsoever that the government has provided showing that we need more doctors. And so it's almost like, we don't need more doctors. How dare we need more doctors? Oh, shame on you. There would be a waste of money. But yet, in the same interview, he says their residents are being overworked. Robots can't fix that. You might have seen in Korea where you see robots, working and being waiters and things like that. Robots bring you your food. That's a thing here in Korea. I've seen it. experienced it. It's like, you order and it's on a little kiosk on your table, and next thing you know, it's like this rolling robot comes up, turns, oh, annyeonghaseyo, and tells you your food's ready, and you get your food. And so there's no more waitresses. Waitresses are going away. They're still here. But there's a lot of places that are doing robots. Robots can't be doctors. There's no, and it's not even like the Doctors Coalition is saying, okay, well, here's a workable thing in which we can, do this. They have offered absolutely zero as far as credible information to say, yeah, that might work. So they're not offering an option that is workable. And the Korean government is just having problems with it, obviously, and the people are paying. The people, foreigners like me, the Korean people themselves, they're the ones, the everyday working people, are the ones that are going to get bent over. And they're going to pay the price for this lunacy. So, yeah. While my experience in the past with Korean healthcare has been great, and it has, if you don't have doctors to give that medical care, then guess what? The medical care isn't that great. And walking off is only exasperating the problem even more. It's making it worse. I don't know. This is crazy. This is actually crazy. So yeah, I highly expect people who have money and have the means go to other countries to get their medical care, because the Korean doctors are refusing to work. Now, I don't I don't know what their pay is like and when was the last time they get a pay raise, and over time, cost of goods and services go up. Of course, you need to have a living wage and so on and so forth. So I don't know when was their last pay raise or whatever. But if that's part of the problem, then, let's pay them a little bit more. But that's going to be reflected in your pricing as well, that you're going to pay more for medical care. So life-saving care, paying a little bit more. There's national health insurance in Korea. Yeah, okay, up it a little bit. I could deal with that. But when the doctors themselves saying they're being overworked, but they don't want more doctors, there's more afoot to the situation. And I think it comes down to corruption. I don't know, maybe, just maybe. Like I said, I don't know fully what's going on. But I'm just seeing a lot of similarities between this Dr. Puppet Master Coalition thing here in Korea and kind of like the days of Jimmy Hoffa and the mafia run unions that ended up not working for the employees and the people, but actually just to line their own pockets with money. I'm seeing a lot of similarities. Kind of like, remember the unions back in the day? Oh, you've got this big project that you want to do. Well, if you're not going to pay up, which pay up money, more fees for their senior staff, then guess what? We're going to go on strike, and you're not going to get your project done. You're not going to be able to get your business done. You're not going to repay your loans, and you're not going to be able to make profit. And we're going to drive you to the brink of bankruptcy, or even into bankruptcy and worse, because we're not going to do our jobs. What do we see here in Korea with the doctors? Almost the exact same thing, except people's lives are at stake. Yeah, it's very rough. Very rough. It's bad. It's bad. Bad thing. Rain, storms, it's going to get worse. So, crazy. So anyway, what have you experienced in regards to medical care in the country that you're from? If you live in the United States, have you ever seen anything like this in the United States? I've seen strikes where, hey, we need to get more pay and so on and so forth. But was it ever at the expense of harming people and refusing to give medical care to those who need it? I can't remember a time of that happening. If you live in another country, share what you have seen in your country in regards to medical care and strikes, and has anything like this ever happened that you've seen? Trust but verify, because when we're watching the Korean news, you don't know, who's putting out the news, and there's always a little bit of bias, that's a fact. When they said no other country in the world has ever done anything like this, of refused medical care to its populace to the point of where it can kill people. and not give them life-saving care and stopping surgeries and people from getting healed and fixed and having a better quality of life. Something that the Hippocratic Oath and doctors, swore to do, even here in Korea. What has it been like in foreign countries? Have you all seen anything like this? If you travel to foreign countries, have you seen or heard anything like this? Put that in the comments section down below. Yeah, this, how long is this going to go on? There's no estimates, because so far the Doctors Coalition is standing firm and saying no, 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 and then the government's saying you need to go back to work, and they're saying no, 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 we're not going to bow to your threats and all of this stuff, and so it's a rock against a hard place. And now the Korean government is talking about, the government has issued the warning, the order for doctors to go back to work, and now the doctors aren't going back to work, and now the government and the chief of police, there was a thing on the Korean news showing the chief of police, or a chief of police, was saying, we're going to contact the doctors, and if they don't go back to work, they're going to come down here and, get arrested, and if they don't come back here, they're going to go and arrest people? The doctors who refuse to work? Wow, I just don't get it. If it was simply a matter of pay, I could understand, but it's not. They claim that they're being overworked, but they don't want more doctors. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, I thought being in Korea and being overseas would, it would take more for lunacy to hit here, but apparently it's been here for a while. It's just been under the radar and not many people know. So I don't know. Might have to go to a plan B, and maybe start looking at, there's a VA clinic, there's hospitals in the Philippines, which isn't far away. Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. Of course, Thailand just upped their expats, and all foreign income is going to be taxed. So there isn't that double taxation, but again, there's a lot of uproar at that. So there's a lot of people leaving Thailand because it's like, no. So they're taking their money elsewhere. So, Philippines, they speak English there. There's a VA clinic there. There's hospitals, great, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia. I don't know. Maybe it's worth a trip to take a vacation. And oh, by the way, since we're here, we'll get our healthcare needs tended to on the same trip. But what do the people do that can't make it, and can't do stuff like that? The people that are here in Korea. I mean, what are the everyday people that can't afford a trip to a foreign country? What are they going to do? I don't know. This is just weird. This is so weird. And remember, back in the day, 70%, it was in 2000 that 70% of the doctors went on strike. I never knew that, never heard that. And I was in Korea, in the military, and I never heard anything about that. But then again, at that time during the military, we got all our medical care at the military hospitals on military bases. There wasn't a lot of referrals sent out. There were some, but it was not a lot. It was definitely a lot less than what we have today. So military service members, contractors, people working overseas on military bases, there's a lot of people that get referrals to Korean hospitals, and now that's going to stop. That is insane. I don't know. The closest place is Japan. Japan is like right there. I mean, that's just a few hours away. So maybe, I don't know, maybe take a vacation to Japan and, oh, by the way, hit some hospitals and get some care that I need because Korean doctors refuse to work. That's just insane. I would never imagine anything like that happening. So anyway, it's been almost an hour and a half, and I know I've been rambling, but yeah, crazy stuff is going on. So anyway, like, subscribe, put something in the comment section, and tell me what you think. And if you live overseas, do you have a plan B? I've always said have a plan B. So we'll see you on the next video. Peace. Crazy, insane.